You know, they say that...
It was a tender First Lady that spoke to the audience of children and concerned adults. No hint of the White House mover and shaker as some have painted her. Nancy Reagan appealed to the children to say no to drugs with words.
You can just say no. I mean, you may feel that you're alone, but you're not. There are millions of kids who'd stand by your side if they only knew that you needed some support. If you needed help, all the kids in this hall would run to protect you, just as you'd run to help save them.
And with the help of Larry Gatlin moving to the beat, she appealed with song.
Help shine the light.
As the Pied Piper, Mrs. Reagan may have led the children to a brighter path. Her presence made a difference to some.
I think it's neat that the First Lady of the United States is helping out here. I mean, they have this big thing, you know. It's great.
It's going to help us all, I feel, because deep down inside, I know a bunch of people really want to say no, but they just don't have the guts to admit it because they want to be cool.
Because we're getting high support, and it's just, I don't know, it's just real high up. And it's good to know higher people care too.
One of the main forces that will have to be defeated in the battle against drugs is peer pressure. With the help of Pride, Mrs. Reagan, and others, our children are learning to say no. In Atlanta, I'm Jackie Wright, Action 9 News.
Muskogee County will have to follow the state's mandate.
The local Board of Education must abide by whatever the State Board of Education does. We don't have the option to make our standards any less stringent than the state. However, we may make them more stringent.
And the policy will be carried out by the principals.
To me, AIDS is a very dangerous social disease, and it needs to be taken care of, and whatever it takes, I'm willing to do on my end.
One parent new to the area says she's happy to know a policy is being worked out to protect her daughter.
I think it's a good policy to go on, considering it'd be a good protection for the other children.
Because of AIDS, next year, who sits next to whom may depend on health.
These desks are empty, but when the students return this fall, they'll have to deal with an issue more complex than reading, writing, and arithmetic. In Columbus, I'm Jackie Wright, Action 9 News. As with the civil rights movement of the past, the march began at a church, the Old Ship AME Church. Representative Bobby McDowell says the march was called to protest the lack of black appointments to key state committees.
We're trying to send to both, well, to all three, the Speaker of the House, the Lieutenant Governor, and to the Governor, a message that blacks don't like being excluded in any meaningful way from state government.
Marchers from all over the Southeast came to support the legislators. There were echoes of the past as marchers sang old civil rights songs, and there were remembrances. The marchers stopped to pray in front of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, where the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King once pastored. As they moved to the Capitol, today's focus was the plight of the state legislators.
This march on Montgomery is reminiscent of the 60s, but instead of an army of janitors and maids seeking better opportunities for their sons and daughters, it is the sons and daughters of those marchers who are now legislators that are seeking the best opportunity for themselves and the ones to follow.
A crowd of some 2,000 made it to the Capitol, where they listened to several speakers, including Hosea Williams, who told me there is a new surge of civil rights activity.
Now there is a new surge in this nation to challenge racism and assure that we will not let racism raise its ugly head like it was during the George Wallace and during the Lester Maddox period.
After an hour and a half, keynote speaker Jesse Jackson arrived and reiterated the words of the other speakers.
We're going to keep on loving. Well, we're going to keep on marching.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
We're going to keep on voting.
Come on, Jesse.
We're going to keep on demanding justice and fair place, and nothing and nobody is going to turn us around.
He said the true agenda the marchers were focusing on included economic change and education.
Tell the governor,
talk good, Jesse,
that 4 years in any state university in Alabama will cost less than $20,000.
That's right, Reverend.
Those same 4 years in the penitentiary in Alabama will cost more than $100,000. The real agenda is to educate our children.
Legislators said if today's action does not bring about a change, there will be other tactics to deal with what they call the new racism. In Montgomery, I'm Jackie Wright, Action 9 News.
With the heat beating off the pavement, it's easy to think about frying eggs, and it's hard to resist the faucet.
But putting all kidding aside, the heat is nothing to play with. So far this summer, there have been 3 heat-related deaths, one occurring just last Friday. In each case, the victim was in a home above 90 degrees, and there was a fan blowing directly on the person.
Dr. George Shannon says fans can sometimes cause injury instead of relief.
In some situations, especially the elderly and the very young, blowing hot air across the body that's not sweating can be very, very harmful.
A key to beating the heat is fluid intake.
The important thing during a heat wave like we're having right now is you got to drink a lot of fluids. You got to get yourself in as cool an environment as you possibly can.
It's important not to overwork yourself. Be aware of danger signals.
If they're not sweating and they feel hot to touch, get them to the hospital. The person who's confused, who's hot and flushed, even if they're sweating, may be suffering from heat exhaustion.
Some early signs of both heat exhaustion and heat stroke include a feeling of weakness, headache, dizziness, nausea, vomiting, and muscle cramps. These signs should be watched because heat exhaustion in its last stages can lead to death. I'm Jackie Wright, Action 9 News.
This is what's left of the Geneva Town Hall, and even some 16 hours later, the fire is still smoldering. But underneath the ashes, there are other burning issues.
There's trouble in Geneva City, and it began before today's early morning fire. The town hall burned down the very day records were to be shown to federal officials. Bob Duplar, a former city councilor, suspects arson.
Buildings just don't catch on fire in a downpour of rain. This building stood here since 1926. I can't conceive why anybody want to set fire to this building. And I say anybody because they know who it was that set the fire here. We attempted to get town records. The former government prevented us from getting records. They tried to hide the records.
The city government is in shambles, just as this old schoolhouse that served as town hall. There is no mayor, and only one of 4 city councilors are seated. The mayor pro tem declined to be interviewed on camera. The city clerk was unavailable for comment. The now burned records have been an issue since early this year. Duplar says they would have shown a badly run government. The GBI and the state fire marshal have been called into the investigation. Early reports indicate arson. In Geneva, I'm Jackie Wright, Action 9 News. An obviously intense fire and explosion broke the early evening silence for Royal Apartment residents. 30 minutes after the fire, residents could still hear the cries of Jeff Bevel, who amazingly survived the intense blaze and explosion. Fire officials say the explosion was caused by a gas heater. EMS officials did as much as they could at the scene. An eyewitness, Danny Sadler, called officials when he first heard the explosion and saw the fire.
Well, I saw him bust his arms out through the window, just doing his best to get out of there, and he had 2nd and 3rd degree burns. I could see that his hand was just peeling off.
Bevel was not the renter of the apartment, and the legal occupant was visiting his parents when the incident occurred. William Clark protested the gas heater being the problem.
No, ma'am, I sure didn't. I put the furnace in myself, and when I put it in, I checked it and made sure there was no leaks, nothing like that. That furnace shouldn't even been on tonight because it ain't cold enough, and I know for a fact it didn't have no leaks in it, and it wasn't no fault of the furnace at all.
But it will go down on the official records as a gas explosion. Chief George Lamb said Bevel was using vodka to sterilize a tattoo, but he said the liquor wasted over the flames did not cause the fire and explosion.
We don't like really portable hoses on any gas appliance. It should be with hard copper or with an iron pipe and put in by a plumber or someone that's certified in heating and plumbing.
The official record will be completed, and let it be noted there were others who survived the explosion.
This do-it-yourself project that should have saved money wound up costing the owner everything, but at least life was not lost. In Columbus, I'm Jackie Wright, Action 9 News.
It was a day to be honored by his own, the people of Plains. There were more than 500 invited guests. The champion North Georgia Blue Ridge Rifles demonstrated their routine, but today's ceremony was anything but routine. It was Plains, Georgia that produced the 39th President of the United States, and the residents felt it was time to note that fact in stone. Georgia marble, to be exact. A tribute that the residents had worked on for some time, and a tribute well appreciated. No matter what happened, victory or defeat, President Carter told the group Plains was always a place to come home to. In an interview afterwards, he said he was a little embarrassed by the monument, but felt it was a tribute to the love and support the town had always given him.
I think it's more a monument in honor of those who made it possible for me to be elected governor and president than it is for me. But I think it's a nice centerpiece for the tourists who come here and want to know what Plains is and how a little tiny town like this could produce, you know, a president. And I'd say the secret of it is how much these people love me and how much they work for me.
Because that love still burns strongly, this landmark is joined by another. In Plains, I'm Jackie Wright, Action 9 News.
President Carter was honored, and there's nothing like giving honor where honor is due, but there's also nothing like having a good old-fashioned good time, and that's what the folks in Plains know about.
And I'm talking a foot-stomping good time at that. It was a time that chewed the fat with old friends and new. And look what crawled from under the rock. Not your common garden variety, but he seemed to mix in and also managed to slither his way to a good time. Well, it wasn't all play for everyone. Katherine Johnson has turned a family tradition into a weekend bonanza.
Yes, my father, he's been doing it for years and years, and so about 4 years ago, I decided I would take it up and do it, and it's been real nice.
And her work was appreciated.
Like this basket here, it didn't even have a handle on it, and the lady went back and put a handle on it, which is what I wanted. And I'm really proud of the baskets, knowing they were homemade, made well.
There was something for everyone, including a South Georgia-style rickshaw ride. And how about a Ren's Georgia gourd, perfect for hoarding life's small treasures? Plains Country Days was such a good time until some tuckered souls had to be laid to rest early. With more than my share of fun, in Plains, I'm Jackie Wright, Action 9 News.
According to local poultry distributors and grocers, the consumption of chicken is at an all-time high despite reports about salmonella. Folks are still buying chicken for the holiday.
Since tomorrow's the 4th of July, and, well, my family wanted chicken, and I was a little afraid of buying it, but